Jen, it's Fantasy Festivus and time to air your fantasy grievances. Who let you down this week?
Let's talk a little Miles Sanders this week, shall we?
Oh, we shall.
He told us not to draft him in the offseason, and a lot of us did not draft him in the offseason. He turned out to be, pretty good for most of the season, surprisingly. And then, of course, when we all needed him most, he was RB 66 on the week with 1.4 half PPR points. He unfortunately lost a fumble, which on his only catch of the day, which cost him a 13-yard loss. So it kind of just screwed whatever production he did have on the ground. So it's pretty ugly for those people that were counting on Miles Sanders with running back as ugly as it is. To have, a clear RB1 in there and to have him put up 1.4 half PPR points as RB 66. Not great.
Just brutal. Yeah, he told us not to draft. Maybe that's what he meant. Maybe he knew he would lay an egg in the fantasy playoffs for us.
Possibly.
Yeah, dang it, Miles Sanders. Now let's get to the show. Welcome, everyone, to the most accurate podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Niles. With me are my excellent co-hosts, as always, Jen Eakins, Chris Allen. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. It's been, it's been a wonderful week so far. I don't know about y'all, but I am exhausted after the weekend of games. Saturday, chilling out, just like a barn burner after barn burner. Got to spend the weekend with our own John Daigle, which was a ton of fun. Over the weekend for a little bit, he came over from Chicago, so we got to hang out. But 5 days out from Christmas, just a couple more weeks left of the fantasy season. Hopefully, most of the folks that are listening were able to advance in the playoffs. But no, happy to be able to talk ball with you guys for at least a couple more weeks. But Jen, how are you doing?
I'm good. Similar. Today, last day of school for my kids, so I officially do not have to wake up at 6 a.m. for a couple weeks, which is fantastic. On a personal note, I lost a playoff game by 1.12 points. I had Green Bay D going last night, and I was so hoping that they would punch it in at the end, and then Baker would throw a pick, and then I would walk off with the win. And that did not happen. Aaron Rodgers knelt 5 times or whatever, and it was over, and I lost by 1.12 points. And it was because, of course, of a last-minute swap that we all do. I swapped out Darren Waller for Dulcich, which was a horrible mistake, a 12-point mistake that I would have won. So anyway, other than that, I'm good. Brandon, you?
I lost in our 4-for-4 Dynasty Staff League. I lost to our friend Jeff Hicks. I got Zay Jones'd. The only consolation is that he beat me so badly that all my terrible lineup decisions, and I made at least 3, didn't end up mattering anyway. So
those
at least
are so much better than losing by 1 point, like me. Because it was literally a decision.
Yeah, he had Hurts and Zay Jones, and I didn't have a bad week, and I'm looking, and that happened. I'm just like, oh, well, at least I can stop watching the score, so that's always the good thing. As a reminder, this is our weekly streaming episode where we'll emphasize hot pickups for the primary streaming positions. That's quarterback, tight end, kicker, and team defense. Chris, a lot's going to be on you this week, man, because we lost a quarterback who is probably a mainstay in people's fantasy lineups in the fantasy playoffs. So, yeah, we're going to need you. But let's go over last week real quick. Sleeper streamer of the week was Brock Purdy, 14th. Pretty good, Chris. Pretty good move there. Brock Purdy, 14th. Ryan Tannehill, 23rd. Matt Ryan, 24th. Mike White is an incomplete, but Zackety Zach was 9th. So I'll give you a half a point for that. And Andy Dalton was 16th. So not bad overall, Chris. Tight ends, Okonkwo was 16th. Tyler Conklin, 48th. And that had to drive you crazy to see CJ Uzoma catch 2 touchdowns, Jen.
Yeah.
But if you listened to Jen and you played one of the New Orleans tight ends, you did pretty good because Juwan Johnson was 2nd with a pair of touchdowns himself, and Taysom Hill 13th with a very fun, just strange, unusual long touchdown pass. Just fun to see that happen out of nowhere. Kickers, Jake Elliott let you down again. Kicker 22, Greg Joseph kicker 16th, Will Lutz kicker 29, Mason Crosby kicker 18. A rare off week for you.
I told you all it was a bad week. It was full preface before we even started. So
You did. It's true. On the bright side, I was even worse with defenses. I liked the Washington Commanders. I should have taken the Giants on that side of that game. I liked the Panthers. Those two tied for last. Saints tied for 15th. Weren't bad. And then everybody liked the Packers tied for 6th. I'm not going to claim any credit for that because everybody screamed from the rafters to use the Packers. So no bye weeks once again. Playoffs, so hopefully you're not having to stream too much at this point. But yeah, so we will still have you covered if you are streaming. We're going to start with our top quarterback streamer, as always, our sleeper streamer of the week. Chris, which quarterback is your number one sleeper streamer for week 16?
So I'm going with Brock Purdy for this week against the Commanders because they are going to be at home like this week. But I guess he is my top streamer of the week. Let's get the Gardner Minshew conversation out of the way first, because I do want to mention that because he was not in my article for this week. So I did want to go ahead and at least put it out there that if you are debating between Gardner Minshew and Brock Purdy, while Purdy is my number one streamer of the week, I do think that Minshew probably does have the higher upside because of the rushing component that's come with Gardner Minshew in the past. I won't say that he definitely doesn't bring the same upside that Jalen Hurts does. Can he scamper for a few yards here and there? Absolutely. But those 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s, what did they call it? I think on the broadcast with the tush push that I think I've heard broadcasters call that for Jalen Hurts. I don't think that same upside is going to be there for Minshew. But in the past,
hold on. Can we change the Festivus this week to tush push? Can we?
I think I've heard that on the broadcast. I didn't just make that up. I think I've heard that on the broadcast.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Yeah. I'm out on that.
I know. Hey, I didn't make it up. I'm just saying I heard it on the broadcast. But in his 2 starts last season, so he went up against the Jets, and then coincidentally, he played against Dallas in week. He was 17, 18, if I remember correctly. But I mean, two passing touchdowns across both, 5 to 7 rushing attempts across both. So it's just he brings that hybrid the mobility and also the passing acumen that we would want out of a streaming starter at the quarterback position. I think the biggest thing though is can they do it against Dallas? Now overall, we've thought that the Cowboys towards the top end in terms of adjusted fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position, they are one of the defenses you don't want to go against. But now since the injuries have started to pile up both at their second corner, so the one that typically plays across Trayvon Diggs, then also their interior line. I mean, we just watched Travis Etienne gash them this past weekend. I do think that there's a way for their running game. So with Miles Sanders, even though everybody hates him after last week, that can keep the offense going. And then of course, if you have multiple pass catchers like Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, and of course Dallas Goedert being activated for this game as well, assuming he gets back in this week. I do think that there's an easier way to tell yourself a story that with the mobility that's there, Gardner Minshew has at least the higher upside in what we expect to be a more competitive matchup. Whereas with the 49ers going up against the Commanders, I mean, not so much. I do think that Purdy at least can be efficient with the ball. We've seen so far, over the past couple of weeks, he actually has nearly half of his yardage is created after the catch. I mean, almost over 200 of his 400 yards have been created after the catch, which is fine. I mean, for the 49ers, that's essentially a feature, not a bug of San Francisco's offense. So that's not a knock against Purdy. It's just more of the volatility that would come with the receivers not being able to be wide open like we saw for George Kittle and things of that nature for this past week. So Purdy at home against Commanders, top streamer of the week. But if you are debating between him and Minshew, since now Minshew's become available for this week, I would lean in that direction. And I think John Paulson, our own here at 444, does have them ranked in the same way. So we are aligned in that regard. But yeah, Purdy number one. But if you can get to Minshew, I would do that.
Excellent. Brock Purdy, the eye movement, the progressions are just wildly impressive for a rookie. Doing stuff that, those things that help you overcome a lack of arm talent. Not that he can't throw, but I don't think he'd be in the upper echelon of as far as arm talent is concerned. But yeah, just fun to see that kid emerging. I keep rooting for him. Don't forget Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy platform with excellent custom settings for fantasy commissioners, including Dynasty, Redraft, IDP, you name it. Easily accessible, wildly mobile friendly. So go download the app, join or start a league today, and go get you some Brock Purdy. Chris, I'm sure you've got more quarterbacks for us. Would you care to share?
Yeah, a couple others. So Zach Wilson, so they know they play on Thursday night. And while I do have him listed as a streamer, my biggest concern right now for the Jets-Jaguars game on Thursday night is the weather, surprisingly enough. There's supposed to be heavy rainfall in the East Rutherford, like New Jersey area for Thursday night. So Paulson and I, we've been talking about that for the last day or so about how bad it's going to be. So you will see updates in the projections as we start to figure things out. We are still, a couple of days out as of right now. So if things change, that might alter my thoughts towards Zach Wilson. But outside of just the mind-boggling picks that he threw from a clean pocket without any pressure in his face against Detroit on Sunday, he didn't look too terrible. Overall, New York still had a similar passing rate for what they had for Mike White, which is about -1, -2 pass rate over expectation, which is fine. But still, they were still averaging about 33 yards per drive, which is again okay. And that was with Zonovan Knight not really being a huge factor in the running game, so it was mostly on Zach Wilson's shoulder. Even though it was really on his receivers to fight through coverage, as Wilson would loft the ball up there for anybody to go up there and pick. But Wilson still passed on 60% of the plays while they're inside the 20-yard line. So the touchdown upside is there for Wilson. And against the Jaguars, we saw Dak outside of the couple of picks and, of course, the game-sealing interception that he threw.
Yep.
Still being able to have an efficient day against the Jaguars. And we've seen, other passers that at least within the top 12. Lamar Jackson got there as well. In the that was 4 or 5 weeks ago. Other QB1 passers have performed well against them. So if we like Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, CJ Uzoma, not Tyler Conklin. Sorry, Jen. But with Corey Davis also expected back for this matchup as well, all that value that we would like for the Jets kind of intersects at Zach Wilson. So he's not a bad starter for Week 16.
Excellent. Yeah, Zach. Good to see him come back. I personally kind of rooting for Mike White, but we'll see what happens. It certainly sounds like he's not going to be healthy this week, so we'll see Zach getting another chance. So who else you got for us, Chris?
Tyler Huntley going against Atlanta. This is more about the matchup more so than Huntley, since now that they're going to be down, Devin Duvernay is supposed to be out.
Wow.
Kind of picking up Sammy Watkins instead. So just the passing game and the passing options are we don't care about any of them. But still, Atlanta's still been giving up 37.3 yards per drive over the past few weeks, and that's with AJ Terrell back in the lineup. The Baltimore Ravens, at least when I saw the opening line, this was Sunday afternoon. I think they opened as 6.5-point favorites. So Huntley's still rushing. We can still see him at least dink and dunk his way down the field against what we know to be a porous Atlanta defense. And I can say that without having, if Lamar's not in the lineup, because I think right now he's listed as questionable, which is kind of odd, even though he missed practice today. I think Huntley is at least a serviceable option, with just the rushing upside that he tends to bring.
Excellent. I cannot start Tyler Huntley because he let me down last week, and now I'm out of the playoffs. So,
yeah.
But in that league, but
yeah.
So tell me why we should trust Kenny Pickett, because coming off missing a game, and he hasn't been great fantasy wise this year. I've been starting in my Superflex league. I've been starting the likes of Christian Kirk over him and things of that sort. Kenny Pickett, what do you like about him this week?
More about the matchup than anything else. Last week, despite the fact that the Patriots, they looked awful on offense. Mac Jones, looked like he was about to start a fight, with pretty much everybody else, on the sidelines with him outside of Bill Belichick. Just over 100 yards passing on the day, which was horrendous. But the positive thing to take away that I took from their matchup against the Raiders didn't take any sacks. The Raiders, despite the fact that Max Crosby has still been playing quite well, they weren't able to have their pressure get home to the quarterback, which I think bodes well for somebody like Kenny Pickett in his first game back. And we know that at least mobile quarterbacks in the past, they have been able to get through the Raiders defense, either that or quick game concepts, which we know that Kenny Pickett can do with guys like Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, alongside him. So while we have seen not as many targets going Pat Freiermuth's way, my assumption is that the offense starts to revert back to the way that it was over the 4 weeks prior to Pickett getting knocked out. And against the Raiders right now, they averaged the Pittsburgh, rather, they averaged about 46.8 yards per drive, like under Trubisky. I mean, that's better than what Pickett has, but against the Raiders, they're right 27th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position. I think Pickett's at least interesting. I mean, worth mentioning against the Raiders.
Sure, absolutely. Jen, Pat Freiermuth, are you worried? You're my partner. You, me, and Justin Edwards, my partner in Pat Freiermuth fandom. Are you worried?
I mean, this is, I mean, yes, but I'm worried about everybody tight end wise. I'm worried about Mark Andrews. I mean, I'm worried about them all. It's but I mean, I feel like he should, I feel like Freiermuth should benefit in this situation. I mean, usually, historically the tight end does benefit with a, younger, less experienced, or just not as good, quarterback. But I don't know, like we said, they're all darts at this point. All of them.
Andrews, man, he got injured mid-season, just hasn't been the same. Just has not been the same since then. So if you're struggling at tight end this week, Jen, who should listeners be going after, and is it a good week to have to stream tight end?
I mean, it's as good a week as any to stream tight end this season. I can't, I'd give it a 6.
Sure. That's high for tight end.
on the tight end scale, I'd give it a 6. It's interesting. We were talking about Andrews, and I'm in a league, one of those guillotine leagues where waivers are done after week 14. So we now have who we have, and we can't do anything about it. And I have Goddard, and I'm kind of, I may put him in over Andrews this week. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm in a situation where I have Hurts, and I'm screwed. I mean, I have Tua. It's not like I have nobody, but as much as we love Tua here on the podcast, it's a downgrade. Let's be
careful, Jen.
Okay, listen, you can't argue that Tua is a downgrade from Hurts. I don't think anyone's going to argue that.
I'm kidding.
But let's get back.
I agree.
Yeah. So back to tight ends. I digressed a bit. So first guy, Chig Okonkwo. I mean, we got to just stay with him, right? I mean, he's tight end 6 right now in half PPR games since week 12. He's had at least 5 targets since week 12 per contest in each of the last 4 games. And, the Texans are kind of in the middle of the pack. They're allowing 9.8 half PPR points per game, adjusted fantasy points per game, I should say. So, like I say, on a scale of 6, he's the guy. He's the best streamer of the week for the most part. And he's also 29% rostered, I should say, against the Texans. I don't even know if I said that part, but
he's been good. I'm actually surprised his rostership is that low still.
I mean, 29. I think a lot of people were waiting it out to see if it was real. I mean, we're on 4 straight weeks of at least 5 targets, and he's tight end 6 in that time frame. So you got to give him a look-see. It's frustrating for, all the Austin Hooper shares that I have in best ball down the drain. Had we known that this was, listen, this is, as we've talked about, is a very, bad year for tight end, but a very weird year for rookie tight ends. Like, they've actually made an impact for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
Usually there's maybe one will have a week or two, but we've had a few this season that have had a decent run. So anyway, number 2, going back to the well again with Juwan Johnson at Cleveland with a 21% rostership. Juwan Johnson is a TD machine right now. He's had 7 touchdowns since week 7, including 2 weeks of multiple touchdowns. So, his volume is not fantastic. I mean, he's averaging 4.75 targets a game in the last 4, games. I mean, for a tight end, I guess it is what it is, right? But there is upside there, and he's available. So, once again, if you want to throw a dart at Taysom Hill as well, in the hopes that he has a crazy play like he did last time, but I would think Juwan Johnson is at least a little bit more of a floor, and there is some upside there. So
nice.
That third guy is kind of a stab here. It's a deep cut, but I'm going Noah Fant at the Chiefs. He's 22% rostered. I know it's gross, but let's hear me out for a sec. So
I like it.
Week 14, he did absolutely nothing. But in weeks 12, 13, and 15, he scored 2 touchdowns. He averaged 5 targets and 36 yards. The difference here is no Tyler Lockett. So, figure he's got to have maybe a little bit better of a role coming in. We could see an uptick Kansas City's kind of in the middle of the pack as well when it comes to defending tight ends. So, it's not the sexiest pick, right? But Noah Fant is someone that could possibly at least get you to that next week in the tight end department.
I like it. I think if I'm remembering right, since Seattle's bye, he's actually had double the amount of Will Dissly's targets, and he was the only tight end with a red zone target, which was the only score that they had against the 49ers last week.
I was curious, what do you guys think of Marquise Goodwin this week? In a game where the game script should be in favor. Yeah, I kind of think so too. As somebody that if you need to pick up a receiver,
if you need, I would like to think that if you're making it to the next round of the playoffs, that you probably don't need Marquise Goodwin. But if you had Lockett and you don't really have anybody else to stick in there, I mean, I know Chris Moore is a good one, but I think I read this afternoon that he's hurt too now. So, I think Marquise Goodwin. I mean, he's had some pretty big games this season.
He has.
And then, a lot of nothing games too, but that's, how it goes.
I think he's got like a 60% slot rate. So he actually operates like Lockett on the field. So absolutely fine.
Interesting. Ricky Rocks wonders if it's okay to drop Jahan Dotson and pick up a defense to stream this week. I would say it depends on your other receivers, but I don't have a problem with that. What do you think, Jen?
I don't have a problem with that. I think that's fine. I do want to address the question up there with Fun Guy 2000.
Are they trolling you, Jen?
No, I mean that's the literal decision that I had last week in Screwed.
Right? Yeah.
I know Sal answered him that we do have Dulcich rates higher. I can't put Dulcich in a lineup this week. I mean, he's pretty much. Listen, he had like 1 week. He just hasn't been consistent in any way, shape, or form. And whether it's Russell, whether it's, Ripon, it just doesn't matter. I just don't think that, matchup aside, like if it was me personal, my team, I would go Waller. I know that, our rankings person has Dulcich higher apparently, but me, no. I don't know. Do you guys,
with Waller active and looking healthy last week, I would start him, but that's just me.
Yeah, I can't count on anyone in the Denver offense, let alone him anymore. Listen, he has fantastic hair and he's had a great rookie season. And he's got a bright future in the NFL. But right now with this current coach, the current situation, the current offense, I go Waller.
Do you get points for the good hair? I mean, if you get points for the good hair, then
points for the good hair.
Points per hair, shine rate,
points per lock.
Yeah,
if we got points per lock, then the Broncos tight end room would be at a like 150 between him and Tomlinson. They have the same hair. So what Tomlinson got in this weekend, and I was like, I thought it was Dulcich, and then of course it was not.
Expected shine over expectation.
Yes. Saw the hair and I was thrilled.
Creating new metrics for Sam Hoppen to chart for us.
I think he's got a tool already up for that. Yeah, absolutely.
He better.
Jen, is it a good week to stream kickers this week after last week not being so?
Unfortunately not. I wish I had better news for the kicker streamers out there. We have another week of extremely low scoring. In fact, it's worse. So last week there were 11 teams with implied team totals under 20. This week we have 14. That's nearly half the NFL has implied team totals under 20 points for the week.
Ew.
That's gross. Yeah. That's just gross for everything. So especially for kicker, team's not scoring points, your kicker's not scoring points, right? Because they don't get points for other stuff like other players do. But I found some, some decent ones in there for us. Number one, going back once again to Jason Sanders. He is playing at home against Green Bay. He is 18% rostered. Sanders are home favorites by 4.5 at the moment, and they have the second highest implied team total of the week at 27 points. He was actually perfect last week in a very tough weather game in Buffalo. We got warm, we got sunny, we got Florida. So Jason Sanders against Green Bay. He's my number one guy of the week. Number two.
I like hearing that, Jen. I like hearing these Dolphins. I like it.
Right? Number two, once again, another guy that he let us down last week, but we're back again. Greg Joseph at home in the dome. I know there's a lot of weather. Chris talked about it earlier. A lot of weather, concerns this weekend. Greg Joseph versus the Giants is not one of those. At home in the dome, 20% rostered. He was okay last week, but this week, once again, they're 4.5 point favorites, just like Miami, with a 27. That doesn't seem right. 26. Oh, anyway, they have the third highest team implied total on the slate. I think I wrote the wrong thing down, but that's okay. Joseph has actually hit 10 straight field goals, and 3 of them have been north of 40 yards. So he's doing nice. If he gets a chance, he's great. It's just last week they were on the comeback trail, which was, that was a crazy game. And so he just didn't have a ton of opportunity. I think he scored 7 points or something, which was fine. I mean, that's not horrible for fantasy, but it's not the big double-digit stuff that we're after when we're streaming. So that's Greg Joseph, number 2. Number 3 is Chris Boswell, which is a name we don't see a lot in this. Once again, not a very sexy pick. However, regardless of quarterback, they are 3-point home favorites. They've got a 21.25 implied team total. Not super high, but for this week, it's actually high. He's only 3% rostered. So these are in those large leagues. If if you're struggling and you need someone, he's there. They're playing Vegas at home. I'm not sure what the weather's supposed to be like in Pittsburgh, but usually Pittsburgh plays better at home, and maybe he'll help out your team a little bit. I do have a 4th option here that will possibly be affected by weather, but I did want to throw him in there anyway, just in case. We have Riley Patterson in New York. He's only 2% rostered. It's not a very good matchup in general. That game has become a pick'em. When I originally wrote my article this morning, the Jags were a 0.5-point favorite. When I went to prepare for this pod this evening, it is now a pick'em. So, and they only have a 19 implied team total. However, Riley Patterson has actually put together 2 double-digit fantasy weeks against difficult competitors in a row. Oh. So here, they played Dallas, and I can't remember the other team they played right now off the top of my head. Either way, he put 2 double-digit fantasy points together against tough teams. So here we are again against the Jets. I mean, it's on the road. It's going to be cold. It's probably not the most fantastic, but if you're desperate, I think he's okay. And then I'm going to throw in a 5th bonus. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I like bonuses, Jen.
All right.
Real quick, just because of the weather situation, I just wanted to throw one other guy out there, and that is Ryan Succop, who has not been fantastic. However, he does have a good matchup, and they have a pretty decent implied team total. If you give me 1 second, I'll find it, because I didn't know I was going to throw this bonus in at you, and I'm doing it now. So let me just look at it real quick while I'm But yeah, so, Succop is one of those guys that used to be solid, and then this season he's kind of fallen off a bit. In fact, he's only 30% rostered. So yeah, they're on the road in Arizona, so it won't be cold. They're 6.5-point road favorites, and their projected implied team total is 23.75. So Succop is a decent option. I know Tampa Bay as a whole is not the easiest team to trust right now, offensively. So, it is a gamble, but if you don't want to go with Patterson and you're in a league where those other guys aren't available, Succop is an option.
Excellent. I like it. Especially the Jason Sanders part. That one I'm a big fan. And this Jags offense is just fun to kind of get on top of in general. They've been playing well, and Trevor Lawrence has been playing well, and Zay Jones Joned everybody last week. So Saxophone Sunsets Media is in the playoffs. 2 flex spots is looking at Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Brian Robinson, or Jahan Dotson. So 2 of those 4. They're leaning Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, but they're worried about the weather in Cleveland. So, Chris, since it's at least a adjacent weather question, what do you think about those 4 options? Where would you lean on those 2?
The non-Saints Cleveland options for sure. Cleveland, as of right now, is from what I saw earlier today, max 28 mile per hour winds, like in line with the stadium in Cleveland, and a -8-degree temperature. So, and I think there's supposed to be a little bit of snow in there too, if I'm remembering right. But either way, those 2 portions, like the cold, which typically brings down like passing rates or passing volume overall. That's a study that I did back in like the 2018 timeframe. But then couple that with the high winds, and I want no part of that game at all. So I would probably lean towards like Garrett Wilson if possible, but then Brian Robinson right after that.
Robinson after that. That makes sense to me. And then Jen Pina wants to know if they should start Tyler Huntley or Jerick McKinnon in their super flex spot. I always kind of I have a hard time not starting a quarterback in my super flex spot, but you too?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter who. I mean, unless it's like a real bottom of the barrel. But Tyler Huntley, I mean, as we talked about earlier in this show, the weaponry is not fantastic, and but I would probably still play Huntley over McKinnon. I mean, I think it also depends. It is PPR, and 4 points. I don't know. Chris, do you have? I mean, that seems you know more about Huntley than I do. As far as, do you have a preference there?
To be quite honest, I could talk myself into using Jerick McKinnon like in this matchup against Seattle. Pass catching running backs like going against Seattle have done like quite well, and with his workload like against like Isaiah Pacheco, I mean, we just watched, what was it, the Panthers a couple of weeks ago. I mean, their longest run between just the running backs, I think Sam Darnold had like a 20+ yard scamper or something like that, but between Donta Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, like their longest run was like 16 yards, and they still dropped 180 yards like on Seattle. So I think it'd be easy for either running back, Pacheco or McKinnon, to have like a good day. So while I think that Huntley, like traditionally, I would agree with you guys, like go quarterback like all the time. But like the team total for Kansas City, one of the best on the slate. Jerick McKinnon has a solid workload alongside Pacheco, attached to Patrick Mahomes, getting the targets. I would go McKinnon there.
I'm okay with Huntley's been burning me, so you could talk me into that pretty easily, Chris. We got some Trevor Lawrence questions. So basically, Chris, start with you. Where would you rank Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence, and Jared Goff? How would you rank those three?
I would probably go Goff, Lawrence, Jones. I think that's the way I would lean. My biggest concern with Trevor Lawrence right now, the weather aside, because there's a chance, I mean, there's always a chance that the weather changes, like by kickoff and all that. But there's a chance they'll be without both their starting tackles in the game. Cam Robinson, like most likely for sure. The right tackle situation, I think, is what they're still waiting to hear on for Thursday. So if they're going to be down both those starting linemen, then I do have some concerns about that. Whereas with Goff, he's protected unless they're going to have like Penei Sewell like go out on another route again and catch passes.
Very, very interesting. I kind of like Daniel Jones to be honest this week. Minnesota, you can score against Minnesota, so I might kind of give a little preference there personally.
That's fair.
Daniel Keenan wants to know. Nope, that we already answered that question. Saxophone Sunsets, Juwan Johnson or Oko? What do you think?
Well, I mean, they were both streaming. Sorry, Luis is slacking me right now, and it's blowing up my thing. They were both in my as streamers. I mean, I had Okonkwo over Juwan Johnson. I would probably stick with that just based on the weather, like you said.
Yeah.
But Juwan is a touchdown, machine. So, yeah, I'd probably go Okonkwo over Johnson there.
Makes sense to me. I've been a big fan of Okonkwo. He's just been really good so far. He's kind of fun to watch. It's nice to see. Tennessee has been such a inconsistent tight end place since they lost Jonnu Smith, and even Jonnu Smith wasn't super consistent. So I'm hoping that we get some sort of solution there. Let's go to defenses. I'm going to be honest, it's not a great week to stream defenses. The only one that I actually kind of like is the Bengals at the Patriots. Now, while I don't expect the Patriots to do 17 laterals into a defensive touchdown this week.
Lord have mercy, that was bad.
That's one of the worst plays I've ever seen. In the
I feel bad for Jacoby Myers, but that was bad.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that's one that's going to stick with him for the rest of his career. That's a
butt fumble level.
Yeah, that's an all that stuff type.
Yeah.
Oh, and that Mac Jones on the field, like just like this, like that's gonna live in infamy. It's crazy. But Patriots, they may not do that play again, but they are tied for 8th in the league in turnovers. Like that's something the Patriots are doing this year. They are turning the ball over. The Bengals are tied for 10th in turnovers forced. So I think we're gonna see that. The other thing I think we're gonna see, Ramondre Stevenson is really the only positive thing happening for the Patriots on offense right now. And it's a very, very positive thing. He's good on both sides. He's good running the ball. He's good catching the ball. But that's it. And I think that the Bengals, if they can get out to an early lead and put it on Mac Jones, I think you're going to see those turnovers. And I think you're going to see the Bengals come away with this one and have a good defensive performance. Logan Wilson playing like his old self after a rough first start to the year. Second half looks like the game-changing, rangy, playmaking linebacker that we all know and love. I absolutely adore Logan Wilson. Looking forward to watching the Bengals beat the Patriots this weekend. So that's the only one I kind of like. These other two, if you're desperate, I can talk myself into them. The Chargers at the Colts. Chargers aren't a good defense, right? But the last 2 weeks, they've stuffed the Titans, stuffed the Dolphins passing games, 2 straight weeks. I know Derrick Henry did well, but the passing game, Tennessee really struggled last week against this Chargers D. They have 5 sacks over the last 2 games. And the Colts, they've been held in the teens in 6 of their last 8. And now they probably don't, or now they don't have Jonathan Taylor. Taylor, I think, went on IR, so he's out the rest of the year. The Colts lead the league with 27 turnovers. They're 3rd in sacks allowed. I think that the Chargers are going to be able to keep this as a low-scoring game, and if they can stop turning the ball over themselves, I think that this is going to be one of those ones where you come out with a good, solid defensive outing against this struggling Colts offense. And then if you need the Lions at the Panthers, Lions, again, not a great defense, but they're getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks, and, if you force Sam Darnold to throw, you force him to try to win it. There's a high potential for turnovers there. The Lions' run defense has been better over the second half of the season, so that might force the Panthers into it. Nick Bodiford pointed out that Darnold has an 8.1% sack rate, and the Lions' pass rush, like I said, it's been solid. Aiden Hutchinson, that rookie, is looking better and better. I think he has 7 sacks on the year. So I don't love the defense, but it's not a bad matchup. And if you really need help, then that's good. And then I have a quick little bonus. I kind of like either side of the Rams Broncos, but those defenses aren't always available, so I'm okay either way. And then the Jaguars against the Jets. I don't love that this week, but they get the Texans in week 17, so not a bad stash option. Or if you can only roster one and you're looking at Chargers, Lions, Rams, Jags, go ahead and get the Jags. Because it's not that big of a delta this week, and a really good stash for next week against Houston. Let's talk real quick. I just want to get, Jen, your take. Daniel was wondering about McKinnon, and this went way up. Yeah, thank you. Was wondering about McKinnon, Ramondre Stevenson, Austin Eckler, Kamara. Needs 2 of those. For me, Eckler and Stevenson, it's a must. I just wanted to know if you had any other take on that.
No, I'd probably go the same too.
Okay, excellent. And Giovanni Cusina wants to know, needs a running back 2 with Jonathan Taylor out. Deion Jackson's on the bench. Wants to know if they should go after Zach Moss. Yuck. I'm with you, Giovanni. I smell Merc. Chris, which one would you prefer if you needed one of them? I know you've been a longtime Zach Moss fan, but I know that that may have waned in recent months.
I would rather I would put in a claim like for Zach Moss, because I would rather have him on my bench and then force myself to make the decision as to whether or not I'd start him, versus letting my opponent pick him up and then start him against me. Like, I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I don't care about like Zach Moss's talent, but the volume is enough that it might sway fantasy leagues. So I'd rather play keep away than just trying to say that, well, I don't like Zach Moss, or I've never liked Zach Moss and I'm not going to pick him up. Like, I think that's the better way to approach it.
Sure. Who, gun to your head, which one are you probably starting if you need to this week?
Probably Moss, and I'm going to hate myself for it.
I love it. Absolutely. Hey, he didn't look too bad last week. So
it wasn't bad. It's just,
appreciate that, Pina. Thanks to everyone who's. Oh, we'll pick up one more question before we go. Apex of War got it in just over the wire. Latavius Murray or J.K. Dobbins for the RB2 position. Jen, do you have a thought on those two?
Latavius Murray or J.K. Dobbins. Murray is a better matchup, but I feel like I'd probably still go Dobbins. I mean, they're pretty close.
Dobbins missed practice today.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
But he's been getting the
sore.
work.
Yeah, I mean, he was just sore. I think that's what
Murray's kind of sneaky okay.
He has been. Yeah.
I mean, so I don't think you can really go wrong with either one. I mean, I lean Dobbins, but you could talk me into either one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Admiral Nita, I would probably go that's a tough one. I'd probably go Chiefs. versus Seattle, just because they've been a little bit more of a playmaking defense. So that's where I would go there. Okay, all right, we're gonna close it out. Thank you so much, listeners, for joining us, listening. I hope you crush your fantasy playoff matchups this week and get into the ship next week. Before I go, I want to remind you about our own John Paulson start-sit event this Friday at 12:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He did this last week, and it was a great success and a lot of fun. So he's going to grace us with another one this week. He's going to host a 30-minute start-sit Q&A. You won't want to miss it. Anyone could join in, but only subscribers to our YouTube channel can leave questions or comments. Stream opens at 12:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. John will start the chat at 12:30. So go to our YouTube homepage. That's youtube.com/@4for4. Click that subscribe button and then tune in to ask John Paulson himself your start-sit questions for Week 16. Thank you, Chris and Jen. Always a pleasure. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, listeners. You can follow us on Twitter at Jen Eakins NFL, at Chris Allen FFWX, and at 2Guys Brandon. Thanks for checking us out and have a good day.